Well, thank you so much for having me, Maria. I always appreciate you taking the time not only spend with me, but to get an opportunity to speak and share some of my insight with everyone. And I pretty much know everybody here, and I'm excited to be able to hear what you're doing. And hopefully, what I speak about tonight will give you an opportunity to either ask me questions or maybe give you a little insight to help you with your business. And one of the things that I have found, not only business wise, but I think in every opportunity or every facet of our life, is how we get stuck in a comfort zone. And we may not think we're in a comfort zone, but it may not be within our business, but it could be within relationships. It could be within our health. It could be certain assets of our lives where we've gotten comfortable and we don't really realize it, but there's a lot of elements that are attached to that once we are within our comfort zone. And if you're looking to get to the next step, whether it's in a relationship, your business, or somewhere in your life, you're going to have to be able to break your comfort zone. And if you don't know who I am, let me tell you a little bit about me. I am a football coach. I have been coaching football for over 18 years. I started with Pop Warner. I've gone all the way up to the college level. I'm also an international speaker and an author. I hold a second degree black belt, and I have been working with women for over 25 years to help them excel in their lives and to take themselves to the next step so I can bring you guys to the end zone of success in your own lives. Your comfort zone is killing your success. So we're going to talk about how to break free and achieve more than you thought possible.
I love your photo.
By the way, this is the cover of my book. I have a book that's coming out at the end of this month called Hair, Mary, and Heels. And this is actually on the cover of my book. And you're getting an exclusive because no one else has seen this yet.
I love it.
Thank you. So what is a comfort zone? I mean, I always think of it, a comfort is, we all know what it's like to wrap up in a blanket. We feel safe. We don't want to go anywhere. It just is like, oh my gosh, I just want to wrap myself away from the world. But a lot of times when we get comfortable, that becomes a place that becomes dangerous. And why do I say that? Because when we become comfortable, we kind of become stuck. We also get into a mental space of safety and always having a routine. If we feel secure, but it also limits our growth. And a lot of times we don't want to face things that are happening. And what I mean by that is things can be going really well and we feel confident what we're happening, but there's always that little voice that's within the back of our minds or saying forward going, you know what, maybe there could be a little bit more, but what's the next step? Or can I do this? Or, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. I'm good where I'm at. But a lot of times when we get to that element, at that point, we have to find the way to get past that fear or that judgment or that fear of change and getting out of our comfort zone. So I want to ask you, and this is something I ask myself all the time, are you really happy? Or are you just really comfortable? And a lot of times I've had to look at that even for myself because I'm relatively a happy person, but I also know when I get comfortable because I haven't pushed myself beyond. Now, being a football coach in a male-dominated sport, there's a lot of times I'm very uncomfortable, and every day I'm pretty much uncomfortable. So a lot of the things I'm going to share with you today, I hope you can take this information and apply it towards your own life within any facet that you may need it to be able to help you move forward a little bit more than where you are today. So what happens? I think we get kind of stuck in our career or our personal growth. We lose out on opportunities. And I think one of the biggest things that always rings in my head is the regret of what if? What if I didn't push myself a little bit more? What if I didn't get past that scared feeling or that fear? Or if I worried about the judgment or if I'm the failure maybe that's happened in the past. And instead of using it as thinking it as a mistake, I just use it as feedback to be able to move forward in everything else that I'm going to do in my life. So I want to kind of go over a couple of the things that hold us, and we all experience this. So what really holds us back from moving within our comfort zone? And the first thing I really feel is failure. We have a feel of failure that keeps us playing safe and choosing comfort over growth and convincing ourselves maybe not to try because we're comfortable where we are. And I think a lot of times it's going to hurt a little bit less if we don't try than if we fell short. And a lot of times we have to pull ourselves out of that way of thinking. And also it turns our mistakes into feedback. And I think that's where we get stuck a lot of times is we go, okay, what if I fail? What if this happened? I've done this before and I've seen the outcome. But the difference is when you take what didn't happen prior and you use it as feedback, and I always say dissect it, look at it and see where did things fall short? Where did things happen? Where maybe did you made mistakes back then that you weren't aware of now? Maybe you've evolved towards that to the point where, okay, back then I didn't know this or I didn't have this. So that's not going to happen. And you take that feedback and it gives you an opportunity to launch yourself forward. And I want to let you in on a secret. I mean, everybody make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And I've even used this as an example. Think of the word mistake as a mistake. Like in Hollywood, when they make a mistake on their lines or whatever, they go, it's a mistake, it's a do-over. Well, we're so hard on ourselves. Why can't we look at that too and go, okay, you big deal, it was a mistake. So it's just a do-over instead of always beating ourselves up. So a lot of times I think that holds us back because we're so hard on ourselves. The next thing is the fear of judgment. And we've been conditioned to seek approval. So stepping outside your comfort zone feels like, risking acceptance, belonging, maybe even respect. And a lot of times when we get judged, we feel like our self-worth isn't to their par. We're looking for their opinions. Making every attempt feels like a personal risk instead of a necessary step towards growth. We worry about what others label us as, maybe, oh, she's too much, oh, you're not enough, or even for our own selves, or my favorite is you're out of your lane, or this wasn't meant for you. And they're already looking at you before you even had an opportunity to even speak. And this is where a lot of times we internalize these things and we start to feel as though, well, maybe I'm not good enough. We start to second guess and we fear the judgment of other people. And what I've learned from this is that the fear of judgment, yes, is a major roadblock. And I'm going to share a story with you in a little bit of what happened with me and how I kind of evolved from it and got over it. But that's always been my biggest thing, especially being out on the football field. Every year I step out on that field, I'm always judged, whether it's the parents, whether it's the players, whether it's the coaches. Every time I'm judged, and I've had to learn to say, I'm not going to worry about what they think. I need to just do my job because I know exactly what I'm doing. But we're going to cover that a little bit later. The other thing, too, is fear of change. A lot of times, what holds us back is we're afraid of change because it's uncertain. We're not know what's going to happen. It's the unknown. It feels a little bit more threatening than staying comfortable where you are. And it's being familiar is one of the biggest things that holds us back from moving forward. If you know exactly what you're going to get based on what you're doing, well, that's a comfort. That's a safety zone. And your brain is like, well, why would I step out of this? Because right now I'm safe. And if you want to move forward, you're going to have to take that risk. You're going to have to step out. You're going to have to step out of that circle of keeping yourself in that safety zone. Because when you stay in that safety zone, nothing happens. All the excitement is going to happen outside of that. So the one and last thing that I want to share with you is, so what happens? Our nervous system is created to keep us safe. And this is why it's difficult for us to step out of our comfort. A lot of times what happens is we get these physical signals when we go to do something, whether it's public speaking or stepping out or going into a different environment or maybe pushing yourself a little bit further where you can just feel your heart race and you get that adrenaline rush and we hesitate. And let me tell you something, hesitation and fear are best friends, because if I'm afraid of something or if you find yourself afraid of something, what's the best thing to do? Step back, think about it. We hesitate, and then we can always justify it by saying, "Well, that wasn't for me anyway. Well, maybe next time." Or, you know what, I'll wait. I'll wait until I'm ready. We're never always ready. My gosh, I step on a stage every single time. I still second guess myself, but I push myself out there and I still get butterflies and I still go through it. But I go, you know what? I've got this. I really want to be able to accomplish and do what I need to do. So I want to share a story with you of something that happened with me. So When I first started coaching, I got an opportunity to be a head coach. And the first year I was a head coach, I loved it. Now, as a head coach, I have to go in, I have to go to these mandatory meetings. Mandatory meetings means every head coach has got to go into this place, and we have to be able to take like a little course, fill out all the paperwork, do all the testing, go through the rule books and everything else of what they expect out of the season. The first year I did it was great. Piece of cake. It was easy. Walked in, 40 guys, jumped, zipped in the back, no problem. Did what I had to do, did my season. I was good. Second year, as a head coach. I went into a different program. The first year I was with Okjoff, which was Orange County Junior All-American. The second year I went over to Pop Warner. Pop Warner is a very large organization. So when they sent me in to do the mandatory head coaching meeting, I walked in, I got there, did all my paperwork and didn't think about it, just kind of did my thing as I usually did. When I walked in, the room was huge. There must have been 200, I think there was 235 coaches in there. And when I scanned the room and I looked, it was all men. Some NFL players, some were 230, they were all really big guys. I was the only female in there. I was the only woman. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this? And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. I'll just sit in the back. Nobody will notice me. I'll just get in, get out, do my paperwork, and I'll be good. Well, no, that would have been too easy because when I got there and I started looking up and down, the place was packed. I mean, for as many people that they could fit in there, they did. And as I kept looking, every row was full. The only thing that was available was more towards the front. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I can't do this. These guys are going to judge me. I mean, they've been here longer than me. So I turned around and walked out and I went, and my heart's racing, my hands were sweating. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going, you know what? And I'm like, no, wait a minute. I got to do this. I can't get out of this. Nobody else can go in and do this but me. If I'm going to head coach this year, I have to do this. So I went back in. I looked around and I shot straight to the ladies' room. When I got in there, I was like, I splashed some water on my face. I washed my hands. Now, the only good thing about this was when I went to the ladies' room, as I turned the corner and went to go in there, there was a line a mile long for the men's room. And I just zipped right in the ladies' room, like, score on this one. So there was a light at that tunnel. So I come out. By now, everybody's filtered in and they're getting ready to start. And as I look in, I'm standing at the front of the room and I'm looking and as I'm scanning through the things, I'm like, okay. And it looked like, you look down a tunnel, it looks like it goes forever. Well, the only seat that was available was in the second row from the front. And of course, it wasn't on the end, it was in the middle. So I keep walking. Now, as I'm walking, have you ever been walking into a place and you feel uncomfortable and you're nervous and you feel like your legs forget how to walk? That's how I felt I was walking. And I could feel the eyes just penetrating on me and the questions, and you could hear the silence. And I could see out of my peripheral vision, eyes darting at me. And I'm like, oh, I just want to get through this. So I get to second row. I look over. There's about 6 guys sitting there before I could even get to the seats that were in the middle. And I said, excuse me, is this taken? Their eyes all darted at me. And one of them just gestured his hand. And of course, they didn't get up. I had to climb over them. So I climb over them. I get into my seat. I'm like, all right, okay, this is good. I got this. I'm just going to get through this. Don't look at anybody. Just take notes. I had a notebook, my phone, and my keys. Set it down on my lap. Set it down on my lap. As I set it down on my lap, my keys and my phone slide off and land on the floor. I went, you've got to be kidding. I was like, oh my gosh. And in the meantime, I'm between 2 guys that are about 250 and 270. So I'm like this, like when you sit in the middle seat at an airport and you're like this between 2 big people. That's how I was. And I thought, oh my gosh. So now I'm leaning over, trying to fumble and get my keys and my phone. And I didn't want to touch anybody. So I'm keeping myself small. I'm pulling myself in small. I'm trying to reach down and get my stuff. And finally, I feel it. And I pull up my keys. I'm like, all right, there's my keys. Where's my phone? So I start feeling, I'm like, all right, there, I got my phone. And now I had to bend down and look. And as I'm bending down and looking, And to find it, I finally see my phone. It was at my feet. Thank God, because I said, please don't let it have fallen in the seat in front of me, because that would have been a nightmare to have to go up there and get these people to move. So I finally see, I kick it over my foot and I reach down. But as I reached down to get my phone, I started to pull it up and I looked at my hand and I went, wait a minute. I got something these guys don't have. And I said, wait a minute, is that true? So I looked down to the right, looked down to my left, and I didn't see anything. And I went, I'm the only one in here that has this. And as I pulled up my phone, I sat up a little straighter and I looked and I went, how you doing? How you doing? And I got bigger and I was like, and I made myself bigger. So they had to move their arms off my chair. And as I looked, I thought to myself, you know what? I have got something that most of these guys wait their whole life to get, and they've coached for years and never got. I have a Super Bowl ring. I'm the first female ever to win a division, a league, and a Super Bowl with 17 guys that I did on my own with everything thrown at me. And to win this and to have this ring is an honor. And to me, it was like, that's when I realized, why do I feel like I'm out of my comfort zone when I know my self-worth and everything I've done and everything I've accomplished? I deserve to be here. I deserve to be here more than any of them, because I know what it takes to win. I know what it takes to get what I got. And I felt so good about myself. And then what it made me realize, while I was sitting there amongst all these people as a coach, every time I have to step out of my comfort zone, every single time, I have to do it because I'm doing it to make a difference in my kids' lives. I do it because I want to be able to stand in front of you and tell you, as another woman, that I have broke a glass ceiling with all the judgment, with all the failure, with all the mistakes I've made, with every change I've had to do, with all the crap I've had to go through and put myself through. I still hold my head high and do what I love to do every single day. So while it might be uncomfortable for me, while it might be hard for me, while it might be difficult sometimes, I know that my value and my self-worth is going to drive me to the next level that I want to be at, not for me, but for everybody else's life I'm trying to change. And in every single one of your businesses, no matter what you do, no matter what business you have, each and every one of you is trying to create something extraordinary and valuable in other people's lives. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. And I know it gets uncomfortable sometimes and we have to put ourselves out there. But if you can remember at any given time what you have and who you are and what you're doing is more important to those people than it is your discomfort or you being uncomfortable, that is going to get you through a lot of these uncomfortable situations. And I know a lot of times you're like, okay, but Mick, how do I do that? And I know, even though my story is a little bit off the rails and a little extraordinary and different, because I mean, I'm putting myself in a massive position, but everything that I came and went through, I had to apply the exact same things. I had to learn to let me identify the real threat. Is there really anything threatening here? No, these guys are just judging me. That's it. That's the only real threat. It was all in my head, thinking that they're all looking at me. They probably were. Most of them were probably wondering. And I will tell you that I think what was hard for me and what made all of this surface was every time I won the year prior against some of these other guys that were there. There was one or two that were there for the following year because they had rolled over. But these coaches didn't know me, but I knew what they were thinking. And the reason, and I'm not going to say all of them, because every time I won, I had somebody call me a bitch. And they said that bitch won. And the woman that was part of the group at that time, when I got my award, and you can see it behind my head because I got an award when we won our league and our division, and then I went on to a Super Bowl. She said, I love the fact that every time they hand in their paperwork and say that one again, she said, babe in total control of herself. And I thought, I'm going to remember that the rest of my life because it made me feel very good about how she took that. And that was something I had to re internalize and change for myself because I knew that judgment was coming. And I'm not saying it's always going to be that extreme, but I think judgment for us is always, what do they think? Can I do this? Where do I need to make that change? Where is that discomfort? And realizing it's not a danger. It's just something that we have to identify and use. And then reframe it as feedback. Okay, what am I going to do with this? Think of something that's positive, like when I discovered my ring being the most important thing in my life and how I got there. That's how I got to the point of realizing that it doesn't matter what field I walk on. It doesn't matter where I go because I know the judgment's always going to come, but I know what I've done and I know the people that I've helped. And when I see my kids evolve and excel and do things, and at the end of the year, when they've said, "You're my favorite coach," I know I did my job regardless of what was thrown at me. And a lot of it is I detach myself from the identity that they've made for me to the identity of who I am. And when you can separate those two for your identity, that is what's going to help you with a lot of things in your life. Because a lot of times we identify ourselves based on who people think we are, who we think we are, or who we think our expectations are, who people want us to be. And a lot of times we have to change that identity because we have let it lead us to where we are, which is staying in that comfort zone to be able to step out and do something exciting. And then build your evidence. Make your list. I invite you today, make a list of all the extraordinary things you've ever done, whether it's been in your business, whether it's in your life, whether it's been with somebody else. You can go back as far as you want because it always counts. You did it. I mean, only you can do that. And I know there's extraordinary things we all have done somewhere along our lives, but we forget because we've allowed all these other things to pile on top to squelch our true identity and authenticity, the authenticity of who we are. And a lot of times that's what changes our environment because we've allowed all these things to create the environment for us that we forget that we can actually have control over that because it's based on our choices, our thoughts, and our actions. And a lot of it is going to be able to bring you to the next level. And I know that it's never easy making change. And a lot of times it's something where we have to second guess, but I truly believe that when you identify what's going on, what you're thinking, visit what's happening, and understand where it's coming from, then all of that uncomfortableness will go away and it'll give you the opportunity. And I always say too, your body speaks your confidence. If when we get scared, what do? We get like this, we get small, we get closed up, can't catch our breath, our chest tightens. And I've had to learn regardless. I've put my shoulders back, I keep my head high. I take a deep breath. I mean, it's even physiologically, it is science. Science has proved that the way you hold your body is what your mind will actually identify with. So if I hold myself with confidence, matter of fact, I had it happen the other day. I walked out on the field and there was a bunch of new coaches on there, and I thought, here we go. They don't know me. So I threw my bag down and I put my shoulders back, I threw my head on, and I walked right out there like I owned that field. And I didn't really care. They didn't come up and introduce themselves to me, and I didn't introduce myself to them. I went out and did my job. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to allow this. I know who I am. And this took me a long time to realize. And that's why I enjoy sharing these stories with you, just to let you know you're not alone. And sometimes the things that are going on in my head are terrible because I'm like, I really am afraid. But I'm like, I can't allow it to take away from what I love. And if you're doing what you love, don't allow the fear or anything else take away from really what you want, because somebody's looking at you, somebody is watching you, and somebody is saying, if she can do it, so can I. They may not say it, but they're watching. And somebody you least expect, you have inspired. And your actions and your confidence, even doing it afraid, and like I said, not being able to walk and shaky, but I did it anyway. When you do that and people see that, it definitely inspires a lot of other people. So, one of the things I wanted to invite you, and I want to thank you so much. I want to ask each and every one of you if anybody would like to. And again, because I'm recording this, I will edit it out because I won't put this on my YouTube video. But I would like to ask, does anybody want to share or maybe ask me a question in something or a situation where you found yourself, experience the same thing I did?
Not as scary as a room of like football players. I apologize for the wiggling dog. But I work in a male-dominated industry. So every time I go do anything, I attend conferences and things like that, they look at me like, it used to be only 10% of us were female, private investigators, for anyone that doesn't know what I do. But right after I got licensed, and this was 30 years ago, but right after I got licensed, I went to a conference in New Orleans. And during like a hospitality hour, I was talking to this guy and he looks at my name tag and he goes, "Oh, your company name looks like your initials." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Does your husband let you have a business? Did he tell you could come here?" And I was like, "What is this, like 1900?" But you get that, what's this little girl doing this? It used to be, now that I'm older, obviously I don't get that as much, but it can be very intimidating. And I just, even these hard bit old school male private eyes will say, that women are naturally better investigators than men because we don't scare people. So I guess that whole, them thinking they can intimidate us actually works to our favor with witnesses and things like that.
Thank you, Linda, for sharing
Sure.
that. To what you said, and one of the things that I've learned is that when people judge, it's because they've been conditioned. I
Mhm.
mean, they're conditioned to think a certain way, to fit a certain profile. A lot of times we step out to do something, and whether it's doing like what we do, where it's male dominated, or you're doing something else and someone says something, it's not because of you, it's because they're conditioned to think that way. And that helped me grow as a person to realize this isn't about me, this is about them.
Right.
So to realize that whatever they're thinking, their judgment or whatever they're bringing to the table, or whatever they're questioning, or whatever is being said, is based on their belief system, not mine. And that has helped me too, a lot of times, get through a lot of the things that I've had to go through, whether it was on the football field or really anything that I do. And that's what I always tell my kids, is that you're not responsible for other people's actions. You're only responsible for your own. And when you have other people that say things or do things, it's because that's what they're conditioned to believe. It doesn't mean you have to accept it, and it doesn't have to become part of who you are. Does anybody else have anything?
I do. You're making me remember some times and some breakthroughs that I had. My corporate career was in a manufacturing environment, so it was predominantly male run, all of that. And rightly or wrongly, I really suppressed my femininity and my womanhood, if you will. I thought I had to in order to compete, right? I mean, because God forbid, you cry on the job. It's like, women can't handle it, or God forbid you lose your temper. Men lose their temper all the time, but when a woman does, she's hysterical. So, so I tried to, play that game without emotion and being as stoic as I could. And over time, it really was suffocating, really suffocating me. And that job did come, to an end. And I was taking some personal development courses, and we were talking about fear. And I was really, really exploring fear. And, fear can be your friend in the right circumstances. If the dinosaur is going to come and eat you, yeah, you better be afraid and run really fast. But the things that we respond that way, and there isn't a dinosaur coming after us, but we still have that response. And I was just dwelling with it and realizing that I was afraid of change and afraid to try something new. I was afraid to make a mistake. Like, if I made a mistake, the world was going to come to an end. And so I was very slow in my decision making to make a change. I was very cautious. I was very deliberative. I was very, analysis paralysis, all of that. And I was sitting in my bedroom, and y'all know I'm a cat person. And I had this litter of stray kittens. And I'm just sitting there kind of contemplating, my life and fear and all that. And these kittens were jumping all over the place, jumping off the bed, falling on their heads, pouncing on each other. And I looked at them and said, they're making mistake after mistake after mistake, but they're not afraid. They're having a ball. And that was when the light bulb started to go on, like their world didn't end because they jumped and landed on their head, or they were chasing the shadow on the wall and, fell off the wall. And that started change in my, started my transformative journey, if you will, of wrestling with, it's okay to make a mistake. That if it turns out to be not the right thing, you can make another decision. And if that one is wrong, you can make another decision. And you can keep making decisions and making decisions, until you find the right ones and the right path. And by the way, every time you make a wrong decision, you're learning and growing. That if you never made a mistake in your whole life, you probably would be uninteresting.
Fail.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So you're making me remember that time and that journey of that time that I went through.
That's awesome, Susan. Thank you. That is, I read a thing. It said, was it fail is either face everything and run or face everything and rise. And I think a lot of times when we attach those, the two things can, go either direction. But I love the fact that cats taught you that lesson. When you see it, it's like kids will make mistakes over and over again. And especially working with kids, but even the little ones, if you think about, if any of you have kids or you have any grandkids, let me do it. I want to do it. They want to do it. And I think the biggest mistake we make as adults is, or I say injustice maybe, is we go and we do it for them. Let them make their mistakes. Let them figure it out or teach them how to do it. You can give them the information, but let them work it out on their own. We're so quick to just say, here, let me show you how to do it. Let me fix it for you. And I think from a young age, we learn that to go, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe I don't have this, or I shouldn't do it, or this is something that is, out of my wheelhouse. But yeah, no, it's, I'm excited for each and every one of you because I know you all excel at what you do. And I really hope that what I had to offer today, gave you a little bit of insight and can help you get to your next step. And I'll share my last screen just real quick because I'm watching the time. Just if you want to reach out to me, you guys can do that. And we kind of went over, whoops.
And I'll have her information on the roster also.
Yeah. So, and then here you can go to my website if you'd like. And one of the things I'd like to ask, and this is my ask, I do have a YouTube channel that I just started, and also I've got a podcast. If you would be so kind to follow me and at least subscribe to my channels, I would really appreciate that, because as I bring my book and my speaking engagements, I'm really trying to build this. The more people that are on it, then the more people I can reach to be able to make a difference in somebody else's life. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak. And thank you for Maria for having me. And if anybody has any other questions, I would love to answer them for you.